Seoul is electric, a symphony of neon lights, foreign voices, and the scent of street food curling through the crisp night air. Viwe drinks it all in as she steps onto the bustling streets, her heart pounding with anticipation. This city is a world away from Johannesburg, its rhythm unfamiliar, its language tangled on her tongue. But she isn't afraid. If anything, she is hungry for adventure, for knowledge, for the kind of experiences that change a person forever. Her confidence is unshaken, even when she stumbles through her first few interactions in Korean, laughing at her own mistakes. It is this laughter, unrestrained, sunlit, alive, that first catches Min Seok's attention. A medical student with a quiet, calculating intensity, Min Seok is not the type to be easily distracted. His world is one of precision, diagnoses, anatomy, the cold logic of science. But something about Viwe unsettles him. Perhaps it's the way she walks, head held high as if she owns the world, or the way she fills every space she enters with warmth, as if she has never known the weight of hesitation. Their first interactions are restrained, almost stiff. Him speaking in careful, measured English, her teasing him about his formality. Yet, beneath their polite exchanges, there's something unspoken, a current thrumming beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. The shift happens subtly. A late-night study session in a quiet cafe turns into a walk through the city. One evening becomes 2, then 5, then a ritual. Beneath the bloom of cherry blossoms, their differences dissolve into something unexpectedly intimate. Min Seok recites traditional Korean poetry, his voice low and steady, the words weaving a melody that Viwe doesn't need to fully understand to feel. In return, she introduces him to the rhythmic beats of South African house music, her voice rich with stories of home, of warm sunsets over the veld, of laughter around the braai, of a sky so wide it could swallow a person whole. He listens, not just with his ears, but with something deeper, something he doesn't yet have a name for. And she watches him watching her, drawn to the contradictions, his disciplined mind and restless spirit, his guarded nature and the way he softens when he speaks of his childhood in Busan, of the grandmother who taught him how to make medicinal teas, of the life he once imagined before medicine consumed him. Slowly, inexorably, they become each other's safe place, but even as their love blooms, so does the shadow of its impermanence. Viwe's time and soul is slipping through their fingers, each day a countdown to the inevitable. Neither of them speaks of it, not yet. Instead, they hold on to now, pretending that cherry blossoms don't fall, that spring doesn't end, that love, once found, is never something a person has to let go of, even though, deep down, they both know better. The end is not abrupt. It does not come crashing down like a thunderstorm or an earthquake. Instead, it is slow, agonizing, a quiet unraveling of moments that once felt infinite. Every glance, every touch, every stolen second is tainted with the knowledge that soon it will all be over. Viwe feels it in the way Min Seok lingers when they walk home at night, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets, as if resisting the urge to reach for her. She sees it in the way he watches her when he thinks she isn't looking, memorizing her, as if she is something he is already losing. But he does not speak. Min Seok has always believed that love should be practical, that emotions should be controlled, managed like an open wound. He tells himself that if he doesn't say the words, if he doesn't name what is growing between them, it will hurt less when she leaves. It is a lie, but it is the only thing holding him together. Viwe, however, is not one to live in denial. She has always chosen reality, even when it breaks her heart. She loves Min Seok with a fire that burns through her veins, but she refuses to be the reason he veers off his path. She sees the pressure weighing on his shoulders, The sleepless nights, the endless rotations, the unspoken expectations from his family. He is meant for greatness, and she refuses to be the one who pulls him away from it. So she pretends. She laughs like nothing is wrong. She plans her departure with the same excitement she had when she arrived. But when she looks at him, she aches. Then, the last night comes. The air is heavy, thick with everything they haven't said. They walk without speaking, shoulders brushing, breaths uneven. Cherry blossom petals drift onto the pavement, falling, just like them. Finally, Viwe stops. She cannot pretend anymore. Are you really going to let me leave without saying anything? Her voice is steady, but her hands tremble. Min Seok swallows hard. He looks at her, and for the first time, he does not hide. His face is open, raw, stripped of all the walls he has built to protect himself. I don't want you to go, he says, barely above a whisper, but I can't ask you to stay. The truth slams into them like a wave. There is no compromise, no easy answer. What they have is beautiful, but it is not enough to defy time, distance, and duty. She steps forward. He doesn't move away. Their first kiss is not soft, not gentle. It is desperate. A collision of lips and years of restraint finally breaking apart. She tastes like longing, like heartbreak, like every possibility slipping through his fingers. By the time they pull away, she is crying. So is he. Neither of them says, I love you. But it is there, thick in the air between them, in the way she presses one last kiss to his knuckles, in the way he watches her as if trying to memorize every detail of her face. And then she leaves. Min Seok does not go to the airport. He tells himself it is for the best. Instead, he throws himself into his studies, into sleepless nights at the hospital, into the cold, sterile world of medicine where emotions have no place. But when he walks home alone at night, beneath trees now stripped of their blossoms, he reaches for something that is no longer there. Viwe does not look back when her plane takes off. She refuses to let regret consume her. She is going to build a life, to chase her dreams, to keep moving forward. But sometimes, when she hears a certain song or sees the soft pink of a cherry blossom in bloom, her chest tightens with a familiar ache. They never exchanged promises. They did not say goodbye. But some loves are too powerful to disappear completely. Even as the years stretch between them, what they shared lingers, like a whisper, like a ghost, like the memory of something unfinished. 7 years. It should have been enough time to forget, to heal, to move forward. Viwe Dlamini has done just that. She is no longer the starry-eyed exchange student who wandered the streets of Seoul in wonder, falling in love beneath cherry blossoms and soft-spoken poetry. She is a diplomat, a woman of influence, a force to be reckoned with. She has sat across tables negotiating trade deals, shaken hands with the world leaders, mastered the art of control. Yet nothing prepares her for the moment she steps into a high-profile diplomatic function in Seoul and sees him. Min Seok. He is standing just a few feet away, his broad shoulders now carrying the weight of a doctor's world, his presence no longer hesitant but commanding. The boy she once knew has become a man, sharp-edged, confident, yet marked by something she cannot name. And then their eyes meet. It is a second, maybe two, but the weight of it crashes over them like a tidal wave. Viwe's breath catches. Min Seok's fingers tighten around the glass in his hand. The world around them fades, diplomats murmuring, glasses clinking, polite laughter in the air. None of it matters. For the first time in 7 years, they exist in the same space again. But they are not the same people anymore. A tense, unfinished conversation. Their first conversation is formal, too formal. They exchange pleasantries like strangers, their voices smooth and controlled, yet beneath the surface, something volatile and unspoken churns. "I see you've done well for yourself, Doctor." "Park," Viwe says, a small, unreadable smile on her lips. Min Seok studies her for a moment before responding. "And you, Ambassador Dlamini, seem to be exactly where you always wanted to be." The words are polite, but the subtext burns, a reminder of all the years lost between them. Vive tells herself that this is all it will be, a moment, a ghost of the past, a closed chapter. But fate has other plans. Because Seoul is a city too small to escape unfinished business. Old wounds, unread letters, circumstances, or fate, or something crueler, keep throwing them together. Meetings, dinners, negotiations, their worlds intertwine once again, forcing them into close proximity and forcing them to remember. The more time they spend together, the harder it becomes to ignore the truth. What they buried never truly died. One night, Min-seok finds something he was never meant to see, a stack of letters, unopened, unsent. They were written for him. Viwe had written to him after she left. Letters filled with raw emotions, confessions she never dared to say out loud. Letters where she admitted how much she missed him, how she wondered if he thought of her too. Letters that, at some point, she decided would never matter. Min Seok reads every word in silence. By the time he reaches the last page, his hands are shaking. That night, he knocks on her hotel room door. Viwe does not answer at first. She knows it is him. She knows why he is here. When she finally opens the door, the storm in his eyes is undeniable. "Why didn't you send them?" His voice is quiet, but there is nothing calm about him. Viwe crosses her arms, refusing to let him see the way her hands tremble, because they wouldn't have changed anything. Min Seok exhales sharply, running a hand through his hair. "You don't know that." "I do." Her voice is steadier than she feels. "You were always meant to be here, Min Seok. A doctor. A man with responsibilities bigger than a love story that ended before it even began." His jaw tightens. "It didn't end. You just walked away." Viwe inhales sharply. The truth, when spoken aloud, is a knife to the ribs. "I had to," she whispers. Silence stretches between them, heavy, unforgiving. Then, for the first time in his life, Min Seok makes a choice not dictated by logic or duty. He steps forward, just close enough for Viwe to feel the heat of him, just close enough that their past is no longer something distant, but something alive and breathing between them. "I spent 7 years convincing myself that time would erase you," he murmurs. "I was wrong." Viwe's heart pounds. She wants to step back, but she doesn't. Because despite all her fears, despite the years and the miles and the painful lessons, she knows something with absolute certainty. She was wrong too. And now, for the first time in years, neither of them knows what happens next. Viwe and Min Seok are caught in a delicate balance, a love that is both intoxicating and dangerous, a reunion that feels both like fate and a terrible mistake. They are no longer just a student and a medical intern stealing moments beneath cherry blossom trees. They are two people with real lives, real responsibilities, real obstacles. Min Seok is a respected doctor now, bound to a hospital that demands more of him than he sometimes has to give. His life is mapped out. His career, his obligations, even his future marriage. His parent reminds him of this at every turn. "You're nearly 30, Min Seok. It's time to settle down," they said to him one evening over dinner. "We've arranged a meeting with the daughter of Chairman Han. She comes from a good family. They do not ask, they expect." Min Seok feels the weight of duty pressing against his ribs, but this time, something inside him fights back. He doesn't answer right away. He doesn't refuse, but for the first time in his life, he does not immediately yield. Viwe sees it coming before it happens. She has always known that she was never meant to be the woman in Min Seok's world. She is not the quiet, obedient wife his family expects. She is not someone who will give up her career, her ambitions, her entire identity to fit into a mold she was never made for. So, when she hears about the arrangement, she does not rage. She does not cry. She does not beg him to choose her. She simply makes her own choice. One night, she meets Min Seok at their usual spot, a quiet park where the cherry blossoms have long since fallen, where the echoes of their past still linger. "I'm leaving," she says. Min Seok stills. For how long? She forces herself to meet his gaze. For good. The words are like glass breaking between them. Min Seok steps forward, shaking his head. "We can figure this out." "No, we can't," she exhales, steadying herself. "You know that." His jaw tightens, frustration flaring in his eyes. "You're just running away again." That stings, because it is partially true. But she refuses to stand still and wait for her heart to be shattered a second time. "I love you, Min Seok," she says, her voice raw. "But love isn't enough. Not when your family already has your future planned out. Not when my career could send me anywhere in the world. We had our time. We don't belong in each other's realities anymore." Min Seok looks at her like she is tearing him apart, like she is stealing something from him before he even has a chance to fight for it. But she has already made up her mind. That night, she booked her flight. The airport is cold and impersonal, a place designed for goodbyes. Viwe sits at her gate, staring at the departure board, her fingers gripping her passport so tightly that her knuckles ache. She tells herself she is doing the right thing, that walking away now will hurt less than staying and watching their love rot under the weight of expectations. Then she hears it. Her name. Someone is calling her name. She turns and sees him, Min Seok. He is not the composed, controlled man she has always known. He is frantic, breathless, desperate. His hospital coat is gone, his tie undone, his hair slightly disheveled, as if he left in a hurry, as if he couldn't let her go a second time. People stare as he pushes past them, but he does not care. Viwe's heart slams against her ribs. Min Seok stops in front of her, breathing hard. "I let you walk away once." His voice is hoarse. "I won't do it again." Her hands tremble. "Min Seok." "I don't care what my family expects. I don't care how impossible this is. I love you, Viwe." He exhales sharply, his eyes dark with conviction. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving that to you if you let me." Silence. The world around them disappears. She wants to believe him. She wants to believe that love is stronger than duty, that some risks are worth taking. But her voice is barely a whisper when she says, "What if it's not enough?" Min Seok steps closer, so close that she can see every unspoken emotion in his eyes, every battle he has fought within himself. "Then we fight for it," he murmurs. "Together." The boarding call sounds. Viwe stares at him, her chest rising and falling, her pulse thundering in her ears. For the first time in her life, she is afraid, not of leaving, but of what will happen if she stays. And then she makes her choice. She lets go of her passport and takes his hand instead. The moment Viwe let go of her passport and took Min Seok's hand, she knew. She knew that love, real love, was never meant to be easy. That it wasn't just stolen moments beneath cherry blossoms or whispered confessions in the dark. It was work. It was compromise. It was two people fighting for something bigger than themselves. And so, they fight. They fight against the weight of expectations, against Min Seok's family, who struggle to understand why he would throw away tradition for a woman who does not fit into the life they planned for him, against Viwe's own fears, the ones that whisper that love alone might not be enough. But they also fight for each other. For the first time, Min-seok chooses himself, not as a doctor, not as a son fulfilling a duty, but as a man who wants to love freely. He walks into his parents' house, meets their gaze, and tells them the truth. This is the woman I love, and that is the only explanation I will ever owe you. It is not easy. There are arguments, silences that stretch too long, and wounds that take time to heal, but he stands firm. And over time, his family begins to see it. Not just the love, but the strength in it. Viwe, in turn, does something she never thought she would. She invites him home. South Africa is nothing like Seoul. The air is thicker, warmer. The sky stretches endlessly, a canvas of golden sunsets and deep, endless blues. The roads hum with life, with laughter, with a rhythm so different from the controlled pace of Korea. And Min-seok, for the first time, is the foreigner. At first, he is quiet, observing, learning. He listens to Viwe's mother scold her in rapid Isichosa, chuckling when Viwe groans in embarrassment. He follows her father through Johannesburg's bustling streets, shaking hands, accepting drinks, answering too many questions about when he plans to marry Viwe. But then something changes. One evening, as the sun melts into the horizon, he stands at the edge of their family's land, feeling the warm breeze against his skin. Viwe watches him, waiting, wondering if he will say that this isn't his place, that he doesn't belong. Instead, he turns to her and says, "This feels like home." And just like that, she knows. They will make this work. 1 year later, they return to Seoul, not as unfinished business, not as a story of what ifs, but as two people who chose each other, again and again. This time, when they stand beneath the cherry blossoms, they are not saying goodbye. Viwe tilts her head back, watching the petals swirl around them, catching one in her palm. The scent of cocoa butter clings to her skin, warm and familiar, mixing with the delicate fragrance of the blossoms. Min-seok reaches for her hand, twining their fingers together. There is no hesitation in his grip. "You once told me that love wasn't enough," he murmurs. She turns to him, raising an eyebrow. "I did." "And?" he asks, a slow smile tugging at his lips. Viwe lets the cherry blossom fall from her fingertips, brushing her free hand against his cheek. "And I was wrong." Min-seok exhales, something deep in his chest settling for the first time in years. She cups his face, her thumb tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "No more running," she whispers. Min-seok leans in, his forehead resting against hers. "Never again." As the wind carries the scent of cherry blossoms through the air, as their lips meet in a kiss that tastes like everything they have fought for, they begin a new chapter, not dictated by fate, nor by duty, but by choice. By love, by them, together,